Thank you. First of all, I would welcome all the participants of the three branches on our today's virtual CP meeting on practical approach of how to utilize Company Fair Start Scheme 2020. A special thanks to our today's speaker, Sri PV Satish Kumarji. And further, I would like to thanks all the three chairmen of Gandhidham, Bhuj, and Anand branch. Now, I would like to invite Sri Bhuj branch chairman, Sri C. Jitendra Thakurji, to say a few words.
Thank you, Ashish. So, government has declared various relaxations in compliance of various laws in the pandemic situations. MCA has also declared fresh startup schemes for the companies. So, in scheme we can file statutory returns with normal fees and various attractive schemes for the inactive companies. Today with us Satish Kumarji, very expert speakers to guide how can we utilize scheme very effectively. And I congratulate Karan Thakur and entire team for taking initiatives to hold a webinar on relevant topics in right time and with expert speakers. Thank you.
Now, I would like to invite Sri C. A. Bhavesh Thakur, Anand branch chairman, to say a few words.
I, CA Bhavesh Thakur. Thank you, Chairman CA Karan Thakur and Team Gandhidham, CA Jitendra Thakur and Team Bhuj for giving us the opportunity for today's joint meeting. I also welcome the today's speaker. Thank you, sir.
Now, I would like to invite Sri C.A. Karan Thakur, Gandhidham branch chairman, to say a few words.
Thank you, Ashish. Good afternoon, everyone. Since we know that the pandemic has been moving towards month and the age of the pandemic has been increasing. Therefore, to support the economy, various aspects has to be done by the government in terms of the financial and in terms of the easiness also. The concept of Atmanirbhar Bharat won't be standing in its alone. There has to be subsidiary pillars to it. And therefore, Company Fresh Start scheme is one of them. The objective is to ease the compliance and to relax the burden in terms of the late fee and, doing all the goods, what can be undone and, the compliance can be done in a good fashion. And therefore, today, we all three branches have jointly arranged this program. And I, thank Satish Kumarji for, acknowledging our invitation and being over there. He is an expert domain in all the three areas. He is a CA, ICW, and CS. Thank you very much. I also acknowledge the presence of Subbar Raiduji, past chairman of Vijayawada branch. Welcome, sir, on this webinar. I also thank all the members for being over here because this is the way how we should move ahead. Because corporate practice is an essential practice if you want to grow your practice. And therefore, in terms of that, it is essential to understand all the crux in the parts of the scheme. Thank you. Over to you, Ashish.
Thank you, Karan bhai. Now, I would like to invite Sri C.A. Sanjay Chotaraji to give the introduction about today's our faculty, Sri C.A. P.V. Satish Kumarji.
Thank you, Ashish. It's my privilege to introduce today's faculty, P.V. Satish Kumar. P.V. Satish Kumar is FC, is a practicing chartered accountant from southern region of ICI and working as a partner in P. Superaidu and Company, Vijayawada, and his core area of practice is corporate, income tax, and GST. He is blessed by CA P. Superaidu and P. Usha Rani. He got qualified as a chartered accountant in 2013, and apart from that, he cleared CWA, CS in the year 2014, and MBA from Acharya Nagarjuna University, Andhra Pradesh in 2015. As a student, he secured All India 9th rank in CS CPT and was a student vice chairman on behalf of Vijayawada branch of Southern region of ICI for the year 2009-10. As a student speaker, he presented papers on various subjects across many forums, national and regional conventions all over India, and received Best Paper Presentation Award twice. He is the winner of elocution competition held by the Vijayawada branch of SIRC of ICI and gets selected as SIRC Chennai consequently for 3 terms from 2008 to 2010. He has given CP lectures on companies 2013 and Income Tax Act to C members of Vijayawada He is a regular speaker for Rotary Club and also a regular paper writer to Vijayawada branch newsletter and Text Guru, the online platform. Thank you. I would like to request today's faculty to start his technical session. Over to you, Satish sir.
Thank you. Thanks for the nice introduction, sir. And very good evening to all the members. Namaste. This is Satish Kumar, Chartered Accountant from Vijayawada, Andhra Pradesh. First, I wish and I hope that all the members and their families are safe and healthy. Thanks to the Gandhidham branch of the SARC, jointly hosted with the Anand and Bhuj branch of WARC of SAI, for giving me this wonderful opportunity, and a special thanks to the birthday boy, the secretary of the Gandhidham branch, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to not only just share my knowledge, but also to learn the knowledge from all the members like you. Friends, the whole world is suffering with this COVID-19 pandemic, and the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, keeping this situation in view, has rolled out a scheme called Company Fresh Start Scheme 2020, that is CFSS 2020, with a basic intention that to reduce the financial burden in this wider COVID-19 spread. Before that, Sanjay ji, can you just, sharing the screen. Yeah. I was just waiting to share the screen. Just a second. Where I am unable to share my screen.
Janish.
Sanjay ji.
Yes, sir. Wait. I'm doing that.
Sir.
Satish, you just try, restart again. Retry it again. Retry. Yes. Because message is coming that you have started screen sharing.
Sir, is it visible now?
No, sir.
But I am visible, but the screen is not visible, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Now?
Yes, done.
Yeah. So, in this pandemic situation, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has come out with a scheme called the CFSS 2020 to reduce the financial burden and with this COVID-19 widespread. Friends, we are all aware that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has been very strict towards inactive companies in the last 2 years, wherein it is striking off various companies, resulting in disqualification of directors for just non-filing of annual returns for the past 3 years. So this is an opportunity for all the defaulting companies to file their pending or belated documents without any additional fee. Friends, I don't think this scheme is first of its kind, because Ministry has earlier also released such a kind of schemes called Company Law Settlement Scheme in the year 2014, Continuation of Delay Scheme in the year 2018, and now it's CFSS 2020. So, accordingly, this scheme is an amnesty scheme released by the government as a helping hand to the defaulting companies to file all their pending or belated documents without any additional fee. So, friends, with this background, we shall go with a brief analysis of the CFSS 2020, and more importantly, we shall just discuss how to streamline an inactive company, that is a company which has disqualified directors, a company which is active non-compliant, a company which has pending annual returns, and a company which is ready to close its company by filing all the pending documents. So with this, we have go with a brief analysis. And friends, I just want to let you know that for the convenience of the readers, I just broke the CFSS scheme into various questions and answers, and where the questions and answers were posted into the slide color of black and the illustrations pertaining to it were in red color slide. So let's continue with the analysis of CFSS 2020. And the first question is, friends, what is fresh start? In the MCA circular, which was released, the word fresh start was used, wherein the filing as a fresh document with normal fee is the idea behind the word, use the word fresh start. That means the defaulting company will file all its pending or defaulting documents without any additional fee and with normal fee as if it is for a fresh. So the word fresh start has been used by the ministry, and note that it is a one-time opportunity to all the defaulting companies given by the ministry to file all the belated documents. Then, what is the benefit of this scheme? Yes, this scheme is beneficial to all the defaulted companies to file its pending or belated documents without any additional fee. That is, this scheme provides an immunity from the additional fee from getting being for each and every form. So, CFSS scheme will be applicable to LLPs? No. There is a separate scheme called LLP Settlement Scheme 2020, wherein all the LLPs can avail the LLP Settlement Scheme similar to CFSS for filing their pending LLP forms. As discussed, what is the fees paid to all e-forms under this scheme? It is just normal filing fees, whether it is 200, 300, 400, 600 or 10,000. Anything normal fees without any additional fee, the CFSS scheme can be used. Then, which companies can avail the benefit of this scheme? As said, all the defaulting companies can avail the benefit of this CFSS 2020 scheme by filing all their pending or belated documents without any additional fee and by just filing with a normal filing fees. I'm just saying that what is the pending documents, pending annual returns. I'm just saying pending annual returns means AOC4, AOC4 XBRL or MGT7 annual return, as the case may be. I came to know that Gandhidham branch jointly hosted with Anand in Bhuj branch, all the chartered accountants are not practicing more into companies. So for their sake, I just want to run through the MCA portal to just show how to download AOC for MGT7 forms. Just a second. We'll just log in. We'll just go into the www.mca.gov.in, where there is a dashboard here about MCA, acts and rules, MCA services, MCA workshop and whatnot. For all the information related to companies, it is available in this ministry website. In this, if you just drag down the MCA services, under MCA services, here they are the company forms and downloads. Here we can just download AOC4, AOC4. Here both kinds of things. AOC4, any form can be downloaded with help of instruction kit, or just e-form can also be downloaded. With the help of instruction kit means with the help of a manual where how to fill each and every column of the form can be easily identifiable. Friends, filing of all the pending Annual returns is a precondition for filing an application for strike off of the name, which we will deal in detail at the end of the presentation while I am discussing STK2 application. Next, under this scheme, whether AOC4 for a year can be filed without filing the AOC4 for the previous year. Okay, I hope you could understand this question. I can say yes, a company can file AOC4 of a year by skipping the previous year, but it's not a good corporate governance. Filing the annual returns year on year is a very good corporate governance, and I'll just let you know practically how I face such a kind of situation. I have got a private limited company where I'm regularly filing the annual returns year by year. In the year 2017, I have received a notice from the ministry that the company didn't file the annual returns for the year 2006-7. But I just don't know. After almost 12 years, I have received a notice that annual returns for the 2006-7 were not filed, and even at that time it was manual. So I approached the jurisdictional registrar and with a covering letter to get immunized by paying the penalty. I filed the ROC returns and I continued the company. Friends, next, can active non-compliant company, that is companies which has not filed INC 22A, can take the benefit of this scheme? We can say yes. INC 22A can be filed under this scheme, that is active form can be filed under this scheme. But what is INC 22A? Yeah, this IE form INC 22A has been introduced on 21st February 2019 by the MCA for address validation. Please underline the word address validation of all registered companies under the Companies Act 2013. All companies incorporated on or before that. Sir, can you mute all, please? It's getting disturbed.
Sure.
I request the committee to mute all the participants.
Sure, a minute.
Yeah. Still it is.
You can continue. We'll,
thank you, sir. Thank you. I'll just continue with my presentation. We are just discussing about the E-Form INC 22A, which was introduced on 21st February 2019 for the purpose of address validation of all the registered companies under the Companies Act 2013. All the companies which were incorporated on or before 31st December 2017 only shall go with filing E-Form INC 22A. Then who cannot file INC 22A? Any company which has not filed its financial statements or annual returns with the ROC, or every associated director whose DIN is not in an approved status and is in disqualified status cannot file INC 22A. So in the simple layman language, INC 22A can be filed by a company which is total 100% compliant to the Act. For example, a company secretary, a whole-time company secretary needs to be appointed if the capital of the company exceeds 10 crore rupees. Earlier, even if this clause is there, many companies has not appointed that company secretary because there is no objection for filing. But after introduction of INC 22A, without filing that DR 12 for appointment of CS, INC 22A cannot be filed. So it can be simply said that it is streamlined. It is a company which are fully compliant to the Act can only file INC 22A. Okay, we will file INC 22A. Then what are the requirements to file INC 22A? Yeah, here I just posted two photos which were prescribed by the institute or ICAI, a standard photograph wherein in one photo the director of the company is outside the premises of the building where the company name, the SIN number and address is clearly visible, and in the other photograph the director of the company is sitting in the cabin of the premises, and click the photo. If you observe on the left side of each photo, the latitude and longitude of each photo needs to be mentioned there. Why latitude and longitude? It's nothing but geotagging. If you just upload this INC 22A, then the ministry can just geotag where the company exactly is located. So how to get this latitude and longitude with the photos? There are n number of apps in the Play Store, wherein NoteCam is one of the app to just click a photo with a latitude and longitude. And here I just shared the link from the Play Store, which you can download to just click a photo with latitude and longitude. Along with the latitude and longitude photos, an email and mobile number of is also mandatory, because in the eForm INC 22A, it will be verifying the form by receiving the OTPs which were entered in the email and mobile number in the form. So for each INC 22A, there should be a unique email ID and unique mobile number for receiving the OTPs and verifying the OTPs and submitting the form accordingly. Okay, yeah, we will file the form. But what is the fees for filing the form? The normal filing fees is 0. It's free if we file within the due date. But if we cross the due date, it is 10,000 rupees. Mind the word 10,000 rupees. But under CFSS, INC 22A can be filed for free of cost. So friends, all are requested to file INC 22A and utilize this benefit of the CFSS. Okay, you're saying us to file INC 22A and etc. But if I don't file INC 22A, what are the consequences? Yeah, the consequences are there. If you just want to change the authorized capital, SS7 needs to be filed, which can't be done without filing INC 22A. If we need to allot paid up capital, PAS3 needs to be filed, which can't be done through without INC 22A. If you want to change the directors, DIR12. If you want to change the register office, INC 22, for amalgamation, INC 22A. These all forms can't be filed without filing INC 22A. So friends, just keep a note of these forms so that without filing INC 22A, we can't file these forms. As discussed, only companies incorporated on or before 31st December 2017 needs to file INC 22A. So a company incorporated after 1st January 2018, or a struck off company, or a company which is under the process of struck off, or a company under amalgamation, liquidation, dissolution, need not file INC 22A. Okay, then coming to the next question, can the benefit of this scheme be availed by the directors for updating or filing the KYC documents, that is DIR3 KYC? The answer is yes. This scheme can be availed by each and every director whose DIN has been marked as deactivated due to non-filing of DIR3 KYC. Once the DIR3 KYC e-form or DIR3 KYC web-based has been filed, the DIN can be restored. And once the DIN is restored, you can file the company's pending compliances accordingly using this CFSS form. But you said that DIR3 KYC e-form, DIR3 KYC web. Can you please elaborate in detail what exactly it is? Yeah. Before going, we'll just let you know what is DIR3 KYC. As per the MCS announcement, any director who was allotted a DIN on or before 31st March 2018 and whose DIN is in approved status will have to submit the KYC details annually. Please note the point, annually. So we need to do the DIR3 KYC for a director year on year, every year. And for this DIR3 KYC, DIR3 KYC e-form and DIR3 KYC web-based form, both are there. Where e-form is can be used and where web-based can be used, I can just explain. For the first time DIN holders, we can file DIR3 KYC e-form, and once this DIR3 KYC e-form is filed, then annually the KYC can be done through web-based DIR3 KYC web, unless and until if there is any amendment to originally find the DIR3 KYC e-form, then again e-form needs to be filed with that amendment, and after the e-form has been freezed, and later from next year DIR3 KYC web-based form can be filed. For more clarity, we'll just go with an example for us for a better understanding. Here I just posted one screenshot where we'll just route through the MCA portal and just know how to inquire the DIN status, and after inquiring the DIN status, whether to file DIR3 KYC e-form or DIR3 KYC web-based. If DIR3 KYC e-form, what are the fields to be required to be filled? We'll just discuss in detail. I'm just routing into the MCA portal now. Yeah, again, when I just came back into the MCA portal, here there are various about MCA acts and rules, MCA workspaces, MCA services and all. Under MCA services, in the left side, there is inquire DIN status, wherein we can just enter the DIN number which we want to inquire, 02003500, 02003500. And if you just click the submit button, we will be just knowing the details of the director, that is the director's name, and see the DIN status is deactivated due to non-filing of DIR3 KYC. Okay, it is deactivated due to non-filing of DIR3 KYC. Very good. So what to do now? Whether it is DIR3 KYC e-form or DIR3 KYC web. Okay, to know whether it is e-form or web-based, if we logging into the MCA portal, if we just route through the DIR3 KYC web, we will be just knowing whether it is e-form or web-based. If we for this, we need to log in into the MCA portal with our credentials. Here, I'm just entering the caption. Yeah, I'm able to log in now into the MCA portal, wherein we need to do the DIR3 KYC web for the given DIN number. Yeah, here it is under MCA services, beneath DIN status, the verified DIN or PAN details, and there comes the DIR3 KYC web. The importance of DIR3 KYC web is it is not any e-form, it is just through web-based, that is, we can directly run to the portal and do the proceedings. We'll just enter the DIN number 02003500. We'll just do the DIR3 KYC web. Oh, here, see the warning. Please file e-form DIR3 KYC to submit the KYC details for so-and-so DIN as it is for the first time. So friends, this director didn't do the DIR3 KYC earlier. So the MCA is asking us to file this e-form first, and later on, year, the web-based form can be done accordingly. Okay, yeah. So this is part of DIR3 KYC, and please note that even for disqualified directors also, DIR3 KYC needs to be done year on year. Okay. You use the word disqualified directors at the time of INC 22A, at the time of DIR3 KYC. At the time of INC 22A, I said that even all the directors who are associated with the company should not be disqualified for filing INC 22A. and under DIR3 KYC, I just said that DIR3 KYC is must even for disqualified directors. But what is disqualified directors? Okay. As per section 164 of the Companies Act 2013, a person shall be disqualified to be a director for a period of 5 years if the company in which he is or was a director has not filed financial statements or annual returns for a continuous period of 3 years. Okay. For a continuous period of 3 years, if a company doesn't file the annual returns, all the directors associated with that company will automatically get disqualified for a period of 5 years. Please note that 5 years. And we can just get the list of the disqualified directors from the NCA portal through this link. I just click the link, and here the disqualified directors according to each ROC is present in the MCA website, wherein ours is ROC Ahmedabad. Here, the list of disqualified director will be updated as and when it's required, and both in the scanned format and searchable format, it will be updated. Okay, you told what about disqualified directors? Okay, I'm disqualified. Now, what is the remedy available for a disqualified directors? Two options are there. The first option is when the status of the company is struck off and the director intends to continue with the company and consequently remove its disqualification, then they can apply to an LCLT for revival of company along with restoration of the disqualified DINs. The second option is the status of the company is struck off and the director doesn't intend to continue with the company but want to remove his disqualification. That is also possible. The concerned disqualified director should file a writ petition to the jurisdictional high court. Jurisdictional high court in the sense where the company's registered office is there, that is a jurisdictional high court. If we file the writ petition, basing on the writ petition, the high court will order the ROC to restore the DIN, and after restoration of DIN, we can proceed accordingly. Oh, we have discussed and what these are all things, but for practical understanding, we shall take a DIN of a disqualified director under section 164(2) and prepare a draft writ petition to be filed in the High Court of the state where the company's registered office is present. Here, for filing a writ petition, we need to take PAN card and Aadhaar card of the disqualified director. And here I received the PAN card of the disqualified director, which I have posted as a screenshot in the slide. Here, I don't know the DIN number of this disqualified director. Earlier, while I was illustrating the DIR3 KYC model, there I knew the DIN number as it was marked as deactivated due to non-filing of DIR3 KYC. But here, I just know the PAN and Aadhaar without knowing the DIN number. But wait, with the PAN card, with PAN name, we can find out the DIN number of the disqualified director. Let us again route into the MCA portal. Yeah, under the MCA portal, here, under the master data on the left panel, here it is visible, view director master data. If we just click the view director master data, the director name and the DIN number, it is being shown, which we just don't know. If we want to enter the director name, we will be just inputting with the magnifying glass present here, where we need to enter the date of birth. Date of birth as per the PAN card, 27/6/1984. And the first name, last name, and in middle name is just a permutation and combination. If we just know the exact name as per the RO's records, we can proceed accordingly. Otherwise, it's a permutation and combination. And for convenience sake, I already permuted all the possible combination and I just came out with the name here. It's Uday Chitturi Kiran. Yeah, here we got the DIN number of Uday Chitturi Kiran, that is 051607888. The DIN number of Uday Chitturi is 051607888, and we have already discussed how to see the DIN status of every director. Here also we need to check the DIN status. Here is a screenshot. When I just checked the DIN status, it has been shown as disqualified by ROC under section 164(2). So the DIN has been now disqualified. Here the director wants to restore his disqualified DIN but don't want to continue with the struck off company. So I am going to file a writ petition in the High Court for getting an order for restoration of the disqualified DIN. For preparing a draft writ petition, these are the basic minimum columns which needs to be filled in. The director's name, father's name can be, director's name, father's name and address can be extracted from the PAN and Aadhaar card which were given by the director. And the DIN number, which I have shown you now the process, it's 051607888. And the disqualification period, here when we see the DIN status, here it was clearly mentioned the disqualification period from and disqualification period to 31st October 2023. Here it was clearly mentioned that it was disqualified until 31st October 2023, and we already discussed that disqualification will be for a period of 5 years. So 31st October 2023 before 5 years means it's 1st November 2018. So the period of disqualification is from 1st November 2018 to 31st October 2023. Okay, these three columns we were able to fill for drafting the writ petition. The fourth one which we'll ask in the draft writ petition is for which company, because of which company you have been disqualified, for which we need to know in which companies this director has been in a position of a director. Here in the view director master data, after clicking the DIN number, if we click submit, we will be getting all the list of the companies where he is already acting as a director, where at the end of the column, if you see, it is Sarkar Sports Act 2 complaint, Subramanyeswara Tobacco Act 2 complaint, but Record Engineering, nothing is shown under Act 2 complaints. Act 2 complaints means which we have discussed. INC 22A is active compliance. A company which have filed INC 22A is called Act 2 compliant company, and which doesn't file INC 22A is called Act 2 non-compliant company. Now, if my guess is right, Record Engineering might be struck off. Just a second. Yeah, Record Engineering is struck off. See the company status beneath the master data. Here it is. Record Engineering has been struck off. Struck off means it might have not filed 3 years annual returns continuously for the period of 3 years in the preceding week. So the ROC might struck off, or we might have voluntarily applied for strike off application through STK2. So what the case may be, as Chitturi Uday Kiran is a part of Record Engineering as a director, as that company got struck off, he has been disqualified for a period of 5 years. So here we need to mention the strike off company name as Record Engineering, and the Record Engineering SIN number is, here it is visible. See the SIN number. The SIN number needs to be entered in the draft writ petition, and more importantly, every ROC will release a strike off list, that is a list which includes the company's name which has been struck down by the ROC. So in that list, we need to mention the serial number and page number of the strike off company name in the writ petition to be submitted before the High Court. For your convenience, I'm just opening the strike off list. Yeah. This is the STK7 list which was released by ROC Hyderabad, that is before bifurcation, or even for some years also post bifurcation. Andhra Pradesh and Telangana has got the same ROC which has governed all the companies of the both states. Here in this STK7 list, we need to check where the R struck off company is there, and we should mention that serial number. So I am just searching for the company name. Yeah. The serial number is 19219. It's in page number 365. So here we have mentioned the strike off number in the STK7 list is 19219 with page number 365 of the STK7 list released by the ROC Hyderabad, that is Dadhan Register of Companies. Now ROC Vijayawada is available. So with this brief particulars, we could able to draft a writ petition which can be submitted to the High Court to receive an order from the High Court for directing the ROC to restore the disqualified director. Yeah, here it is, the draft writ petition with all the basic details which we have discussed till now. I have prepared a draft writ petition which needs to be filed in the High Court for restoration of the disqualified DIN. Once the WP is drafted, the writ petition is drafted, hearings will be there in the concerned High Court, and once the justice is satisfied, he will be issuing a order directing the ROC to restore the disqualified DIN. See, here I presented the screenshot of the High Court order which I received to restore the Chittoor Udaykiran disqualified DIN into active status. So after receiving this High Court order, we need to approach the Register of Companies to restore the DIN. We need to approach the Register of Companies to restore the DIN with a covering letter. Covering letter requesting the registrar by mentioning so and so facts that a writ petition has been filed in the High Court, and with a copy of writ petition getting attached with a copy of order and the STK7 list which we discussed with a copy of STK7 list. If we just give a covering letter to the ROC, by not less than 24 hours time, our DIN gets activated. So now we need to check whether really our DIN has been activated or not. So again, I'm running into the MCA portal. I'll just, as we all know how to inquire the DIN status, I'm just seeing the DIN status. I'm just copying the DIN number for convenience. We'll just go to the MCA services where we need to click inquire DIN status on the left panel. There, if we just paste the DIN number which I have copied earlier. Yeah. Earlier, it showed disqualified by ROC under section 164(2). Now, after filing the writ petition and receiving of order from the High Court, the ROC just restored the disqualified by ROC to active DIN, and here is the status of the approved DIN. So with this, we can activate the disqualified director by filing a writ petition in the High Court. Okay, we just came to know the procedure of how to draft a writ petition and how to file before the High Court and all. But if we just continue with the scheme, there is one, if we will be coming across one more question wherein how CFS is advantageous to an inactive company. There are two options to an inactive company. One is filing e-form MCS1 and the other one is filing e-form STK2. MCS1 pertains to become a dormant company. STK2 pertains to a company getting struck off. Now we shall discuss the first option, that is, what is a dormant company? The dormant company has been discussed under section 455 of the Companies Act 2013. Basically, it is more relevant to a construction or a real estate company where there will be intellectual property. Except for that property, there is no need for that company to just continue with this activities. So for such kind of companies, this dormant company status is very useful. But we need to know, for a dormant company, what is the meaning of the term inactive? Yeah, here I mentioned an inactive company means a company not been carrying on any business or operation, or not made any significant accounting transactions during the last 2 financial years. That is, significant accounting transactions making fee to ROC. This won't come into significant accounting transactions, and this can be done by a company. But without making any significant financial transactions for the past 2 years, or if you don't file any annual statement or annual returns for the past 2 years, then you will be called an inactive company, and now you are eligible to file an application to ROC for becoming a dormant company. For more understanding, I'll just give you a small example. Suppose a person has incorporated a company in India and running a business. Later on, he got offer to go abroad. Once he just don't know when he'll come back to India, but his intention is when he comes back to India, he just want to continue his business in the same company. But as we already discussed, if the company is not filing its annual returns for the last 3 financial years continuously, then ROC can suo moto, can strike off the company. So without getting striked off, that person, that director or associated authority can just file an application to ROC for keeping the status of the company as dormant. Then what is the procedure for the dormant company status? Yeah, as per section 459, first one is you should file an e-form MCS1 for applying to ROC for getting a dormant status. Then ROC will verify the application, and if it is okay with the records, then the ROC will issue a certificate in form number MCS2 that your company has been turned into dormant status. Okay, now your company has been turned into dormant status. After turning into dormant status, now you need to just file one annual return every year, that is within 30 days from the end of the relevant financial year, in form MCS3, stating that you are not doing any business, that there are no signified financial transactions. So like that, you need to file every year MCS3 form to ROC. After filing MCS3, if you just go on, and in our earlier example, if that person who went abroad is coming back to India, and once he comes back to India and if he intends to do the business actively, then he should file an e-form MCS4 to ROC, requesting the ROC to convert the dormant company into an active company. If you file that e-form MCS4, after verification of that e-form MCS4 by the ROC records, if the registrar gets satisfied, he will issue a certificate in MCS5 stating that yes, this is an active company, and once your company gets activated, you need to file all the compliances which are similar to any other company. This is the procedure for how to become a dormant company. Now, if we just discuss about the second option, that is how to strike off the company, that is closing a company. Closing means sentimentally it's not good to anyone. So closing the company, I will discuss at the close of the presentation. Let's continue with the CFSS questions. The next one is, which companies cannot avail the benefit of the CFSS scheme? Here, certain companies were given by the CFSS circular, wherein it was said that where a final notice by ROC was already initiated for striking off the name as per the Companies Act, and or where the company has already filed the STK2 form, means that the company has suo motu filed the application to close the company. So once you apply for closure of the company, you are not eligible to avail this CFSS scheme. Number 3, where the companies have been amalgamated under this scheme for any arrangements or compromise, then you are not eligible to avail this benefit of this scheme. Number 4, as we discussed, if a company has filed MCS 1 for getting a dormant status, then such companies cannot avail the benefit of this scheme. Along with that, vanishing companies also cannot avail the benefit of this scheme. And the last but the most important is, here it was mentioned that where you want to increase the authorized capital and also charge related documents, this scheme is not available. The MCA circular clearly stated that if you want to increase the authorized capital, CFSS scheme is not available. If you want to upload any charge related documents, that is CHG1, 4, 8, 9, then also CFSS scheme is not available. But I have got an interpretation doubt here with regard to MCA circular, where here it is clearly mentioned that where increase in authorized capital is involved. But friends, in the SH7 form, it can be utilized in the 4 ways, that is for increasing the authorized capital, or for increasing the number of members, or for consolidation or division, or for redemption of redeemable preferences. For these 4 purposes, SH7 form can be utilized, but only for increase in authorized share capital only. In the MCA circular regarding CFSS, it restricted. But MCA has released 76 forms where which form can utilize CFSS scheme. In those 76 forms, SS7 did not take place. That means SS7 form is abolished to use the CFSS scheme. So it's not just for increase of authorized capital, it's for all purposes of SS7. This CFSS scheme can't be availed. Then the next one is the with respect to charge related documents also, CFSS can't be availed. That is charge related documents for CHG1, that is any loan creation, any loan satisfaction, that is CHG4, for any continuation request, CHG8, for any debenture related, CHG9. For all these 4 forms, CFSS can't be availed. But recently, in the month of June, that is 17th June 2020, MCA has come up with a circular number 23/20, wherein it has specifically given a benefit for CHG1 and CHG9 forms. Only CHG1 and CHG9 forms. That is, 2 options were given. 2 options were discussed in the circular. The first one is, if a loan has been created or sanctioned or approved on or before 1st March 2020, and the due date for filing the charge related document falls between 1st March to 30th September 2020, then for the period of counting the due date, for the purpose of counting the due date, this period of 1st March to 30th September won't be considered. And the second one discussed in the scheme is, if the loan has been approved or sanctioned in the period of 1st March to 30th September 2020, then the due date for filing will count only from 1st October 2020 and not before. I know that you will get a doubt, what is this charge related documents? Yeah, if any company avails any loan from a bank, then that loan particulars needs to be given to ROC, because companies needs to be a public document. So all charge related document needs to be uploaded to ROC, for which all public can see, yes, this company took loan from so and so bank of a so and so branch. So like that. So CHG1 needs to be filed, and if there is any modification, again CHG1 needs to be filed, and for the closure of the form, CHG4 needs to be filed, and for any debentures related thing, CHG9 needs to be filed. Okay, we are just discussing that CFSS has released 76 forms. So MCA, in the light of CFSS, has released the list of 76 forms which can avail the benefit of the scheme. Only for this 76 forms, CFSS scheme is available, and rest all CFSS scheme is not available. We'll just see what are the 76 forms which were introduced by the CFSS for availing the scheme. These are the list of the 76 forms which were introduced in the CFSS circular, wherein it was clearly mentioned that only these 76 forms can avail the benefit under the CFSS scheme. I think it's not so clearly visible. I'll just go into the directly into the PDF. Just a second. Yeah, this is the PDF of the 76 forms which were given by the RO, which were given under the CFSS. So before filing any form under CFSS, I request all the members and the stakeholders to just go through these 76 forms, and only this 76 forms are eligible for CFSS. That is, only for these forms there is a waiver or immunity from additional fee, and only normal fee needs to be filed. Yeah, just a second, sorry. Yeah, thank you. I'll just come back to the presentation. So we have seen the list of the 76 forms which were released under the CFSS, who can avail the CFSS scheme for getting immunized from the additional fee. These are the 76 forms. Okay. These are the 76 forms, I can understand. Okay, after seeing that 76 forms, one will get a doubt that whether a foreign company can take the benefit of CFSS for doing belated filing. I need to give some explanation for this, because strictly and technically speaking, foreign companies cannot avail CFSS scheme, because as per section 2, subsection 20 of the Companies Act 2013, a company means a company incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 or any other relevant law within India, but a foreign company is a company incorporated outside India. So CFSS can't be used technically, but if you see the list of 76 forms wait, I'm again just going to 76 forms where see serial number 50, 52, 53, FC1, FC2, FC3, FC4, the 4 forms which pertains to the foreign companies takes place in the list of 76 forms, which means that CFSs will be available even for foreign companies for filing the forms from FC1 to FC4. So technically speaking, Act won't prevail, but MCA CFS's MCA circular is allowing FC1 to FC4 to be filed under CFSS form. So though technically it is not allowed, CFSS is allowing. Next, the next question under CFSS scheme is, can the MSME forms be filed pursuant to this scheme? Okay, this question is relevant to filing of an MSME form. For filing MSME form, there is no fee, no normal fee to be paid to the ROC. So once if there is no normal fee paid to the ROC, then there is no question of CFSS immunity, because there is no additional fee. Without normal fee, additional fee won't be levied. So here, if we can say that the CFSS grants immunity from any additional fees, penalty and prosecution. But as there is no fees that is to be paid while filing the MSME form, there is no question of this scheme being applicable to such form. Hope this gets a clarity here. Next one, I hope everyone will get a doubt. You are saying that CFSS will give immunity from additional fees. I just want to know what kind of default is not covered under this scheme. Okay. This CFSS scheme is only an immunity for default in filing. Please note this point. This is an immunity for default in filing. Okay. It's not any default in consequential proceedings. For better understanding, I'll just come out with an example. Let's take PAS3, which needs to be filed for shares allotment by a company. A share should be allotted within 60 days of the receipt of the amount from the concerned person, and if not allotted within 60 days, after 60th day, within 15 days, it needs to be refunded back. If not refunded, as per section 42, subsection 10, every defaulting officer is liable for penalty. So here, if we can say that as PAS3 can be used under CFSS, the additional fee will be immunized. For suppose PAS3 needs to be filed in the month of February 2019, and now it's been almost 15 months since its filing. So the penalties or additional fee will be levied, and that additional fee will be waived by the CFSS. But the consequential proceedings which were dealt under section 42, subsection 10 of the Companies Act for every defaulting officer won't be immunized. So CFSS is only immunity for default in filing. It's not immunity for any consequential proceedings. And more similarly, a company needs to be conducting AGM within the prescribed dates. As you all know, within 180 days for the first newly incorporated company and so and so dates. If not conducted, if the AGM is not conducted within the set due dates, with CFSS scheme, you won't get any immunity. So I hope you have got you understood what kind of immunity you will be getting by utilizing the scheme CFSS. So we have just discussed what all the benefits, I mean the immunity by utilizing the scheme CFSS. But at the end, don't forget that there will be application for obtaining the immunity, that is CFSS 2020 is the application which needs to be filed for each and every company who utilize the CFSS scheme benefits. Sir, is this CFSS 2020 form available now, or when should I file? Okay, I'll just let you know everything in detail. Before that, I just want to tell you that in the circular, I'll just show you the circular. Wait. Yeah. This is the circular, the CFSS circular number 12/2020, which was already circulated by the branch to every member. You also can please view. In the circular, it was clearly mentioned at the end of the draft, there is a draft form, CFSS 2020, wherein the SRN numbers of each form which we have filed for a company under CFSS needs to be entered here. It needs to be entered here to get immunity from the immunity benefit from the CFSS scheme. Assurance of the e-forms against which immunity is to be sought is to be mentioned here. There comes one more question then. Sir, can we file this immunity form, that CFSS 2020, for all the companies in one single form, or for every company we need to file single form for each and every company? As of now, CFSS 2020 is not available in the portal, but to my understanding, after seeing the draft form, here in the draft form, it was asked to enter the SRN numbers of the filed documents, and at the end of the draft form, it was asked to digitally signed by the director of the company. Means for each and every company, the CFSS 2020 form needs to be filed, because the director of one company may not be the director of in any other company. Also, if he is the director of in any other company, he cannot file for that company here. So in that way, if we can understand, and even by seeing in the first page, in the first column, it was asked the SIN number. So the form is SIN number wise, not for all companies, only one form. Okay, so as per the draft form in the circular, if the scheme benefits are availed by the company, such a company has to file the CFSS e-form. On or such a company should file CFSS e-form. But when? Within 6 months from the closure of the scheme, CFSS e-form needs to be filed. That is, on or after 1st October 2020 and before 31st March 2021, the CFSS e-form has to be filed. And once this CFSS e-form is filed, ROC will be verifying, and once subject to approval of the ROC, an immunity certificate will be given by the ROC. Yeah, this is the immunity certificate which will be given by the ROC, saying that so and so forms have been filed under CFSS, and after filing the so and so forms, all forms are immunized from all additional fees. If the ROC won't immunize for you, the additional fee which has been waived off under CFSS needs to pay now. So be cautious that after filing the CFSS, after filing the forms under CFSS, you should file CFSS 2020 within 6 months from the closure of the scheme. As the scheme closes by 30th September 2020, within 6 months means within 31st March 2021, you need to file CFSS 2020, and after due verification, this CFSS 2020 will be approved by the Registrar of Companies, and then immunity certificate will be provided. So hope you were able to analyze the brief steps in each CFSS form. Then we just left off one option in option. See this slide. In the earlier slide which we discussed, there for an inactive company, there are two options. One, going into dormant status by filing form MCS1. Number two, by filing form STK2 to get the name struck off. At that time, I told you that the struck off procedure will be dealt by me at the end of the presentation as it pertains to the striking of the company. So now I'll just discuss how to file a strike off application to close the company. Yeah, if you want to close the company, you can file STK2, which is a strike off application. Because I just know that running a company in a profits is every promoter or director's dream. But under the present tough situation, he or she may warrant to take a tough decision to close down the company. So STK2 can be advantageous for such a persons who want to close the company. That is, if a company fails to commence its business within 1 year of its incorporation, or non-carrying out any business or activity for the last 2 financial years without having the status of dormant company. Mind the word without having the status dormant company, because if we have already applied for the status of dormant company through MCS1, which we have already discussed, then you are not eligible to file STK2 application when your company is in dormant status. After the dormant status gets converted into active status by filing MCS4 and getting a certificate in MCS5, then you are eligible to file STK2 application. While for closing a company, there are 2 options. I won't say as 2 options because in the first one, the ROC can directly strike off any company name as per section 248 subsection 1. As we already discussed that if we don't file continuously annual returns for the last 3 financial years or any other conditions, then ROC can suo moto strike off the company, and once the ROC strikes off the company, all the directors associated with that company will get disqualified, and we have dealt in detail how the disqualified directors can be reactivated by filing a writ petition in High Court. The other one is the ROC didn't suo moto struck off the company. We just want to voluntarily apply for strike off procedure. That is the strike off the company on its own under section 248 subsection 2 of the Act. We shall just discuss how. We need to file STK2 application for closure of the company. But are all the companies eligible to file STK2 applications? No. Listed companies, companies which have been delisted from any stock exchange, vanishing companies, companies where investigation or inspection is pending, companies have charges which are pending, or section 8 companies. That is, section 8 companies means non-profit companies. Earlier under Companies Act 1956, it is section 25 companies. These all companies can't file strike off company. That is, only a clean company without any assets or liabilities except the paid up capital and reserves, there should be nothing to file STK2 application. Here in the last but one point, it was also mentioned that companies having charges which are pending for satisfaction also can't file STK2. For example, I have took a loan of about 50 lakhs from a company, from a bank, I took a loan of 50 lakhs and I created the charge accordingly by filing form CHG1. Okay. After filing form CHG1, if you just don't close that charge, that is by filing CHG4 for satisfaction of charge, then you are not eligible to file STK2 application. That is, you are not eligible to close this company. So one should keep in mind all these eligible points before making application for strike off. Okay, now I am eligible to make the application for strike off. Now, along with this STK2 e-form, what are all the attachments needs to be filed before the ROC? One by one, we shall just discuss. STK3, it's an indemnity bond given by each and every director associated with the company that it is not doing any activities, that any claims which are post the strike off application, they are not liable. Any claims by any ex parte of the company are not getting libeled for this directors. Such a kind of indemnity bond should be given by each and every director associated with that company in STK3 form. Number 2, as said, financial statements should be given by the company. Financial statements in STK8 format, the ministry has prescribed how the financial statements should be there while applying STK2 applications, wherein the source of funds and application of funds, only these two columns will be present while preparing the financial statement for attaching to the STK2 application, which needs to be done in STK8. Number 3, an affidavit should be filed by every director in form STK4, indemnity bond in STK3, and affidavit by every director in STK4 with the same, almost the same clauses. What are all pertaining in the STK3 will also be there in STK4, but here it's a kind of consent that we are voluntarily accepting for the closure of the company, which needs to be made in a STK4 form. Note that both STK3 and STK4 should be there on a printed on a stamp paper. The value of the stamp paper depends upon the state to state ROC, which needs to be checked in the concerned jurisdictional ROC. And these stamp papers should be duly notarized, and only after notarizing this STK3 and STK4 forms, it can be attached to STK2 filing. And later, after STK3, STK4, STK8 for STK2, then we should file a special resolution wherein there should be a consent of minimum 75% of the members of the company that they are accepting for closure of the company. That special resolution needs to be filed in STK2, and later on, as any special resolution needs to be filed in form MGT14, and even e-form MGT14 also is covered under 76 forms of the CFSs. So you will get an immunity from waiver of additional fee, but you won't get immunity from consequential proceedings. That once MGT14 is filed belatedly, every officer in default should face all the consequences by the ROC. So you will not get any immunity from CFSs for such belated filing. Then next attachment is the statement regarding any pending litigations. That is, if the company is having any pending litigations, such a statement should be attached to form STK2. That, okay, sir, the company don't have any pending litigations. With all the 6 attachments, STK3, STK4, STK8, special resolution, pending litigations declaration, resolution copy, everything. Then STK2 form needs to be filed, and for filing STK2, the fees is rupees 10,000. So you can ask, is there any immunity for paying 10,000 through this scheme? No. As discussed earlier, CFSS gives immunity only to additional fees, but the normal fees needs to be paid, and the normal filing fees to be paid to STK2 is rupees 10,000. Yeah, as already discussed, these are STK3 in stamp paper, STK4 on stamp paper, and STK8 in the prescribed format of ROC with the source of funds and application of funds is just nothing but it's a statement of accounts. So, as already discussed, every detail of director or a company is available in MCA portal. By just clicking this link, we will just route into the MCA portal where we can just find the strike off list. Yeah, here it is there. Here, see the last but one, the notice of strike off by STK7 as per 248(1). That is, the ROC will first issue a notice that your company is about to strike off. So those all notices will be available in this link. The last but third, the list of companies for 248(5). That means after issuing notice, after complying on each and every procedure, and after the prescribed due date mentioned in the notice, even then the companies won't respond, or companies not satisfactory respond to ROC, then the ROC has every right to strike off the company, and the company's strike off list is available here in the MCA portal. If you just click the link, see again the list of companies struck off, we can make it as ROC wise, that is ROC Ahmedabad, Bangalore, and every ROC. Here, as this is ROC Ahmedabad, we shall just click ROC Ahmedabad and we can just see the list. Both it is in scanned copy and searchable copy. That is, we can just search the name of the company which has been struck off here. We shall just go back to the presentation. Yeah, after finding out the list, we came to an idea how this STK7 can be utilized. Okay. In the first, at the initial time of the presentation, I just told that how to streamline a company which is an inactive company, this with disqualification directors, whose company status is active non-compliant, who has pending annual returns, and who want to close the company. These are all 4 points which were already discussed in the presentation in a thorough manner, and hope you all have understood what all the procedure, how to avail the benefits of the CFSS scheme, and how after utilizing the benefits, how to proceed accordingly. Before going or before concluding, I'll just go with a live example of a company. For a small example, there is one private limited company where there are only just 2 directors in it. One director has been seized or has been deceased in 2015, that he has expired in the year 2015, and one director got disqualified by ROC as he is in one more company for which, as it is not filing annual returns for a continuous period of 3 years, ROC has struck off. Okay, so one is deceased director, one is disqualified director, and from 2016 the company is not filing annual returns. So now for this 2, I'll just tell you one small tip. For this disqualified director to get just activated, I just told you the procedure how to draft a writ petition, and with an advocate we can just file before the High Court and get the order to restore the disqualified DIN. Okay, the disqualified DIN we got the order from the High Court, but the registrar shouldn't act to activate the DIN because there is a deceased director. As and when we informed that there is a deceased director, the registrar just activated the disqualified director, and now the director status is active. And for the one with just one director, one director, we cannot file the forms of that company. So I just want to give one small tip. DR12 is an e-form for change in designation of directors. In the same form, if we file the details of a deceased director that he expired in 2015, and if in the same form, if we add one more director, that DR12 can be proceed accordingly. I just want to say why this is a tip, because as said you earlier, since 2016, the company didn't file its annual returns. So for filing the annual returns now, INC 22A active form was not filed. With one disqualified director and one deceased director, we cannot file active form. So what is the remedy now? The remedy is in the same DR12. The deceased form can be included and we can add one more director, so that now there will be two active directors for which INC 22A can be filed, because for filing INC 22A, there should be minimum two digital signatures of the directors. For a deceased director, there won't be digital signature. So for the second director, the digital signature is available now. With the two available active digital signatures, e-form INC 22A can be filed, and accordingly ROC returns can be filed, and later on we can, as the case may be, if you want to convert the company into dormant status, by filing MCS1, you can convert into dormant status. Or if you want to close the company, by filing STK2, you can just close the company. So with this CFSS scheme, which is beneficial to all the stakeholders, I request all the members and stakeholders to utilize this benefit and avail the immunity benefit for additional fee and proceeding accordingly. Along with the CFSS form, many other reliefs have been given by the ministry considering this COVID-19 period. And in this article of mine, I have given some of the relaxation, that is with respect to board meetings or time gap for board meetings, the enhanced period for board meetings, video conferencing for AGM, and as a kind of similar reliefs were already given in my recent article. For better clarity, I'll just show my article. Yeah. This is my recent article wherein I have dealt all the major reliefs, that is with respect to board meetings, that is with respect to period, with respect to CARO, with respect to INC 20A, that is commencement of business, that has been enhanced for 180 days to one more 180 days. And within that 180 days only, you need to file that INC 20A. So such kind of benefits were already dealt in detail. So with this, I just want to conclude my presentation by saying a big thanks to the managing committee of Gandhidham branch, jointly hosted by Anand and Bhuj branch, for giving me this wonderful opportunity for analysis of the CFSS. And for any queries, here is my mail ID. If you just mail me those queries, and I'll just reply to that mail accordingly. Okay, thank you. And I just request the host to take over the session now.
Thank you very much, Satish. I think there are a few queries in the comment box. Can you please address those if not done yet?
Oh, I just didn't see the comment box. Please wait. Yeah. The first one is company incorporated in 2019. Is it required to file INC 22 or 22A, which we discussed? Amit Bhai. Okay, Amit Bhai. I think it's INC 22A. As we already discussed, only for companies incorporated on or before 31st December 2017, INC 22A needs to be filed, and INC 22 is for change in registered office of a company. And hope your point got clarified. The next one is, yeah, Secretary Ji, I hope I answered all the questions.
Yes, sir. One more query, sir. Amit Bhai only.
I have a question about same topic. Can I ask right now? Yeah, please. Amit Bhai, please continue. You can ask. Amit Bhai, are you typing or? Sir, if you unmute Amit Bhai, he can just ask his, he can shoot his
Amit ji
question.
can unmute himself only.
Amit Bhai, please unmute yourself so that you can just shoot the question. No problem. I think Amit Bhai is not there. Sir, with this valuable opportunity, I hope I could clarify some of the points on the CFSS. Yeah.
One of my company has established since 2018-19
Okay.
and has not started any business till date.
Okay.
So is it necessary to strike off its name?
Yeah, as discussed in the presentation, a company which has not having any business, it has got two options. Either it can go into dormant status, or it can go into STK2 application by closing the company. So you can, Amit Bhai, you can just choose any of the option available.
Right.
Amit Bhai,
And another, if it is a Section 8 company,
okay.
so the same rule will be applicable?
Yeah, I said you that Section 8 company, it's not applicable to a Section 8 company.
Oh.
So you can go with the dormant status, and if you just mail me your detailed query, I can just give you a detailed reply.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit Bhai.
Satish, just share your mail ID in chat box.
Chat box, just a second.
So that Amit ji can mail you the query.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I just
so
posted my mail ID and hope everyone got clarified. At least I was able to at least enlighten at least few how the CFS scheme can be utilized in a much better way.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I think there are no queries right now.
So any queries, you can just mail me so that I can just reply to that mail only.
As members are requested, if there is any query, then kindly note down the mail ID of towards faculty, and he will fortunately reply on the same. Okay, looking forward to the end of the session. I will have a lot of thanks for you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for accepting our invitation and to enlightening us on such a great topic. And by this, I think the members will have open for a new area of practice. So this will be good for members of Gandhidham branch and Bhuj branch as well as Anand branch. Thank you, chairmen, of Anand branch and Bhuj branch for jointly hosting a session. And also thanks to today's member who have who were the members of today's session for making this session a grand success. Thank you, members. Thank you. Thank you, Satish ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your cooperation and opportunity, and hope
Okay,
I
sir.
could enlighten. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, so, okay, sir. Thank you. Bye.